So, where to start? I guess the simplest way to start is to give you a little bit of background about myself. So, I am 44 years old, an entrepreneur. I've had my own businesses since I was 20, um, and I am an alcoholic. I was diagnosed with a unknown eye condition about 5 years ago. Lost the sight in my left eye, 90% of it. And at one point, about 2 years ago, I couldn't read emails or texts. So it was a little bit of a challenge. It was a little bit of a challenge. I decided that I knew what was going to fix me, and that was alcohol. To run away, to hide from my problems. And I set off on a journey of becoming an alcoholic, which I achieved. Success! I couldn't do things normally because I'm not normal. So I decided to go to rehab in Ibiza. So off I went for my first little trip. Did a month in Ibiza, came back and thought, got a nice start. Yeah, look, that was nice. Had a break for a month. Carried on. Went back for 3 months, and the 3 month stint was really interesting because I spent 3 months actually working on myself. I had 3 months in this rehabilitation centre. I'm privileged to have been able to do it. And I spent 3 months working on myself, me and a child, all about me, my past, my history, and I was convinced I'd fix myself. It was okay. I've never been beaten by anything in my life. You know, whenever I've had work problems, whenever I've had this, I've managed to find a way. I cannot be beaten. I will not be beaten by this alcoholism. So that was it. Told myself, fix myself. 3 months later, jump on a plane. I decide, because I'm fixed, I'm going to have a little drink to celebrate. 5 bottles of champagne later on the plane, back we go again. So I had to learn acceptance. I had to learn accepting defeat. And that was a big, big struggle for me, to learn that it's okay to be defeated, as I classed it in my head. And is it actually defeated? Football teams play every week. If they lose, is it the end of the world? No. You know, if I fail or if I accept that I am now an alcoholic, is it the end of the world? No. And it's how we look at things. It's the perception for me. It's the perception of learning the acceptance, learning that it's okay not to be okay. You know, and that is one of the key things that I've learned. The stigmatism around an alcoholic, that was my next challenge. So I'd been into various different rehabs. I'd spent all this time working on myself. I'd finally accepted that I couldn't beat it. And I finally threw in the towel and I was ready to come out the other side. And then it was like, what's my next challenge? My next challenge was, okay, everyone's judgment. An alcoholic, somebody on a park bench, you know, alcoholism or any mental health illness challenge, it doesn't choose, it doesn't discriminate between a person. Any single person can struggle with anything mental health wise. There is no discrimination. It's about our perception, our judgments around it, and what we've always. So I was like, what am I going to do about all my clients at work? If I tell them, am I going to lose work? I had this internal battle with myself, and I had to come to the stage and be comfortable. How do I get rid of this? And it was about taking away the power. So by me coming out and basically be open, telling everybody, laying it out there, saying, I am an alcoholic. When I moved house, and the first thing I did when I moved house is I went round and knocked on the new neighbour's door and said, hi, I'm Alex, I'm an alcoholic. Took the power away, because then I'm not putting myself in a risky situation. I'm not going to get invited round for a beer, and then to question why I'm not having a drink. I am in recovery. I've had a tough time, and I am in recovery. I have to work on myself every day to make sure that I look after myself. So for me, it's all about that, taking the power away, and being willing to be open, being willing to be vulnerable. Because actually, by being vulnerable and being open, it's actually strength. It's not weakness. And that's where a lot of us consider it as weakness. I considered failure. I considered being beaten by the alcoholism as failure. And it wasn't. I got a message came through this morning, and this is literally, no word of a lie, this is just on one of the recovery groups that I'm in, and messages fly around, and I'm in different recovery groups in different countries because I like to be friends with lots of crazy people. And this came through saying, sometimes we're tested not to show our weakness, but to discover our strengths. And it was really poignant for me because I thought, going to give this talk today, we're going to basically, sit and talk about different ways of looking at things, different ways of thinking about things. And it really touched me going, yeah, it's true. It's okay not to be okay. It's okay, to struggle. And the more as a community that we can stand up and go, yeah, I'm struggling. Very sadly, my mum's sister died last week of terminal cancer, and I spoke to my mum just 2 days ago, and my mum said, yeah, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I'm keeping myself busy, and and the old way of dealing with things is head down, pretend that nothing's going on, and just carry on regardless. And I said to her, it's okay to be upset, Mum. Have your time to grieve. And, we need to change as a culture. Times are changing, and it's important that as business owners, as leaders, as, employers, that we all are willing to change and we all are willing to look at things in a different way. So I just wanted to share those couple of bits with you guys. And I think I'm going to hand over to James.
Thank you, Alex. And I'll find my position and I might end up wandering around. We'll see how it goes. But yes, we're here to talk about the transition, or sometimes how we navigate adversity and to lead it towards, can we create more opportunity out of it? So even when times get tough, we can face that. We can find our way, or we can enlist the support that we need to get ourselves through the difficult time, to get ourselves back onto the track. If it's this back onto the track that was before, or if it's back on track in a completely different way going forwards. But in whatever way we navigate through, to be able to face adversity, we'll come out the other side. That's what we're talking about today. The underdog stories, the ability to rise from the ashes, those kinds of things. What feeds into that? What allows it to be that we find our way and come through to that other space? Who am I? James Marquis. I'm a psychology professional of over 16 years, 11 years in the NHS, my own private company since 2013. I work with hundreds of individuals, but also with companies and organizations, working with leaders, working with supporting employees, or creating well-being strategies that help the health and well-being of everybody in business. I want to come to talking about the traits that are something that helps us go through a story, as Alex shared with us, and some other things you'll hear today. Some of the classic traits that are put forward are the ability to adapt effectively to changing conditions, the ability to recover rapidly from setbacks, to transform obstacles into opportunities, to learn optimistically from failure, and if we can maintain enthusiasm despite the challenges. These are some of the key traits that are put forward. And then for me, as a psychologist, I always kind of look a little layer deeper. Is it what gives us the ability to do these things? Because these sound great on the surface, but at the point when the struggles really come, some of those feel a massive distance away from us. So some of the things that help us to maintain our capacity on these fronts, I wanted to share 4 key things with you today. So number 1 is perspective. The clarity in perspective is essential. So that thing of being able to see the wood for the trees. Because if you get lost in and amongst the trees, it all gets a little bit more considerably difficult from there. And if you think of a traffic jam, with a traffic jam, when you're down in it and you're immersed in it, that's a frustrating thing. That's where the tension can be. But if you're 200 feet above in that helicopter view, it must be quite an interesting little thing to see. So perspective and the ability to step back and step out to maintain or regain our sense of position, or what we can do from seeing the situation with a different level of clarity. Perspective is so essential. If we're too immersed, too entangled in problem, stress and difficulty, and start to struggle, and we stay immersed down in there, it can all get quite wobbly. We want to be able to step out of those spaces, come back to our grounded selves. Because if we're staying too long, stress can occur, and the stressed brain is definitely not the best brain. We can be more threat aware, more risk vigilant, become more tunnel visioned if we're in continuing stress, unrelenting stress for too long, the brain will actively start to edge against us. So we have to take care of our nervous system, so it doesn't start to put us into these shutdown states, anxiety states, or like I said, that kind of threat reactivity and that tunnel vision. We have to help our system stay on track to avoid it getting more complicated. What I like about this graph is it's talking about the high level of performance, not the high level of stress. Performance is good. We want to get switched on. It's not about just being nicey nice. We're in business. There's things to achieve. There are things required of us. There are demands. There are pressures. Nobody can take that away from the world. It's going to be the case. But if performance pushes and pushes and pushes to a degree, and we push too far and beyond the curve, and again, it's that unrelenting. We stay in the pressure with that level of performance being accelerated, but to a point where it starts to go beyond us stretching and achieving that growth and that maximum performance. It starts to go to feeling that strain, and you ignore those warning signs of strain, and it starts to take you over the curve into the crisis. Then it can get much more difficult. So we have to pay attention and just mediate, be able to drop back into comfort, recharge, re-energize, regain ourselves. If we keep pushing and pushing and pushing, things can break. So we want to take care on the track. Within a day, if we push ourselves and from the morning we're already in stress, sometimes you can wake up already stressed before you began your day. You must start paying attention. If we push the spike continuously and we are up there, ongoing basis, and we maybe crash down in the evening and even got time to relax, it's not relaxed relaxation, it's agitated relaxation. The nervous system's being pushed. You'll get the signs and signals, and we've got to pay attention to them. Not to say that we shouldn't perform, as I said previously, go into those zones. There's going to be stress, there's going to be demands on us. Absolutely, go there, spend some time, but in a much more steady way with that ability to back out, regain perspective, regain our own sense of comfort and health. Now, it's all quite small on the screen, I understand, but these are just the classic recommendations. So if it starts getting too far, if I start finding myself over the curve, what should I do? Classic things are connect with others, eat well, time in nature, recharge. These are nothing new, so we're not going to expand too much on these. But it is the simple advice that is usually the most necessary. The ability to come back to the basics is something we've usually gone too far away from. Use those things to help yourself come back down. There are also psychology tools. These are simple ones I share so commonly with clients. And it's about, instead of being in a space where asking, what's wrong? What's the problem here? What's going on? How bad is this going to go? Oh, we can get so saturated into that. There are tools to help us come back and again, reassess where we're coming from mentally, how we're perceiving and approaching things, how much can we just come back to our solid grounding, solid footing. And these tools are available as PDFs. Now this next piece, so we talk about perspective. If you start to lose or get a little bit wobbling perspective, you must do the work to come back and rebound. But this second section, confidere. So put it on like I could speak Italian maybe. But I heard this mentioned once and I liked it. Of course, the foundation of the word confidence. But in its initial sense, the meaning that was put forward, the ability to trust, to be assured, to have belief, to be in faith. And whether that's be in faith with God or a spiritual thing, or it's to have that belief and have that trust in your own self, the team around you, the people around you, to be assured that you can get through the situation. Either way, that state of confidence, that state of confidence, that is something that is so strong, and it can be a mental position that we have to choose sometimes, because the world might push and pull us into different spaces. And if we can establish ourselves with perspective, with some of that strong assurance, knowing we can get through this, knowing we can do what we need to, there's a hell of a lot can come from that. Because our man Winston Churchill, he said at one point, "For myself, I am an optimist. It just does not seem to be much use to be anything else." Optimism doesn't have to be positivity. It doesn't have to be, sometimes the term I like, toxic positivity. I do it because there can be that around, especially if we're in the northwest and we don't like too much sunniness. It's grim up here. But that element of optimism, it doesn't have to be positive, everything's great, everything. Optimism can be very simple, very understated, but it's that assurance. It's, I know it's going to be okay. I don't have to be all singing or dancing about it. Sometimes things get tough, but I know there's a way. I know it's going to be okay, I can find that. Does that make sense? Number 3, connection. So social connection and interpersonal support, an important protective factor for dealing with life's difficulties. We understand this, but when it comes to mental health struggles and stress struggles, one of the classic traits of a human is to start to withdraw, start to disconnect. That can happen more, and it should be seen, and we should all see it as a sign that we're just starting to get a little lost amongst the trees. If we start pulling away from things we would otherwise do socially and disconnecting from people who we would otherwise communicate with, because it's all getting a bit tough and I don't know how to voice this, sometimes that's the time when we need to connect the most, even if it's challenging. But there are physical health problems from loneliness, not only mental or psychological. Now this one is going to be tiny here, so I'll fill it in a little bit for you, but it's just backing up what I'm saying here. So a study released 2021 in the Journal of Psychiatry. Basically, it just reinforced something that we already know and we've known for a long time, but in a very large-scale way. So it's saying that, I might be able to read it on here. So it indicates that resilience has a positive relationship with mental health, yes, and that social support serves as a powerful buffer against the negative impacts of lowered resilience, yes. Now, this study was taken in 2021, so right in the midst of the flood of the crisis through COVID. There was 23,000 people surveyed between 18 to 85, and there was such a strong trend. Out of everything they measured, social connection was the strongest buffer for personal health, personal resilience, and for mental health protection. Leads to healthier behaviours, it buffers against stress, prevents isolation and loneliness, and ultimately connection saves lives. Charities like the Samaritans and Mind and the Suicide Alliance, if there is one thing that they are all desperately trying to say to us, it is talk, it's connect, and it is make sure that you don't suffer in silence. It's a strong thing, and as I say, our psychology sometimes will work against us on that. We have to regain it. The fourth one, grit. Now, this is in balance, because I'm talking about grit, but as Alex said, you can't just forge on regardless. You must be paying attention to your nervous system. You keep driving it, you're going beyond the curve. We're to have grit, but with discernment. Grit, but with perspective. So all of these things tie in together. And if we're blasting on, and someone's trying to say, look, is this novel getting a bit rocky? We're meant to listen to that and connect to the people around us, pay attention to the warning signs and signals. But grit is that tenacity. It's the attitude, the choice towards, I can face the ordeals. I can work with the challenges that present themselves. I can even go to a bad place, be taken to a bad place. But I can find that way to face the scenario, make what needs to happen, and I can bring myself through in whatever way is required. There's a couple more quotes that came through from Churchill. If you're going through hell, you've got to keep going. But again, not just forging on with ignorance and blindness, but we must keep going. I will take the man bit out of it. We're in modern times now, isn't that just saying? I like a person who grins when they fight. But this notion of, it can get tough, but if you can keep that perspective of where you're coming from and why, and in what way you're going to respond to the adversity that presents itself, then it is something that brings strength and capability. So the four things is perspective. We want to be able to minimize stress and maintain it. Compidere, maintaining belief, being in faith, whether it's in yourself, others around you, or the situation as the potential to pass. Connection, yes, it's important. And grit, that ability to choose to go the hard yards or to do what's required to bring it to the good place, not just keep driving through the bad. There are some books that we share. These again will be on the code that we share at the end. And if there are any questions, we're going to have some space at the end of when we've done some of the speaking. And again, you guys are doing some speaking with each other as well. After all of that, any questions, feel free to ask them to us. That's the end of my section. And sharing into Mr. Tony Sandle.
James, thank you for that. Hi everyone, my name's Tony. I'm one of the Claritee team. So I'm here to talk about leadership in the modern world. And I think the picture gives away my background as to why I'm here to talk about leadership today. So what gives me the qualifications to speak in front of you today? Why am I here? So I am still a current serving British Army officer. I'm a reservist, or the TA in Old Money. I joined the Army in 1989 for 3 years. I just forgot to get out. I then served for 28 years as a regular soldier, joined as a private soldier all the way through to the rank of WO1, was then offered to apply for a commission, which I did, I left my regular service in 2017. I've been a reservist since then. Formed my first business in 2018, and I've been proud to be a member of the Claritee team since about May of last year. Now, I've been thinking about, for a couple of weeks now, since I've known we were doing this, how to approach it. I want things to be different. I want to talk to people in different ways. So my approach is to talk about leadership in the modern world and how I can maybe offer you the opportunity to think about how you can be the best version of yourself. How is that important? Why is that important? Because I believe if you think about your own well-being as a leader, if you can improve your own well-being, that only has a positive net effect on those with whom you work, on those who work for you, and for those from whom you work. So both up and down the chain. And I'm talking about leadership in the modern world. Why the modern world? Got an alert. I'm going to mention the C thing. Okay, there was a little thing called COVID that happened recently. You may have heard about it. It causes all a few issues. But I think, from my perspective, it's the only thing in modern times that has affected every single person currently in your workplace today. Probably the first thing since the Second World War in the United Kingdom that has affected every single resident of the United Kingdom. And it changed the world. It changed the world significantly. People found different things to do. People had different priorities. People found different things. We found different ways to work. Look, I know that people died and suffered. It wasn't all bad. We took some positive in the ways that we can do hybrid working processes and things into the future. So it changed the world. But what? So the world just got a lot more difficult. Because if you're stuck in the way that you were, if you're always doing things, was it Henry Ford that said, if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. It's about doing things differently. And I would like to start, if I may, with just one little exercise. Don't worry, it's not too intensive. If you're ready, we can ask everyone to stand up, please. Thank you. I'll take your part as well, thank you. What I'd like, find a bit of space, what I'd like each of you to do is fold your arms. Just fold your arms. So everybody fold. Now do it the opposite way. Fold your arms the opposite way.
Oh, Jesus.
There we go. Have a seat. Thank you. Remember that feeling. Some of you were giving it. I know you can't see the thing. You're thinking, but once you know what to do, it's very easy to achieve. Just hold on to that until later for me. So, what am I going to talk about today? What is leadership? Many theses have been written on this subject, leadership management. Is there a difference? What is the difference? What can it be? It took me a while to work out about leadership and me projecting myself onto the teams that I was leading from a military setting. I've been to war on 2 separate occasions, war fighting troops on both occasions. I could use that as a stick to beat people with, just I've had to do real leadership at times. On the first occasion, 19 years of age, all I had to take care of was myself. I was talking to Danny earlier, and I'd said that when I came back from that at 20 years of age, I had my birthday out there. The Claritee does, it's not a great place to have a birthday, I'm not going to lie. But I came back and people were like, you've changed. Of course I've changed. Life experiences make you change, don't they? That's what life does to you, be it good, bad or indifferent. I have a thing that I say in the business. And I say, it's not a good thing, it's not a bad thing, Alex, it's just a thing. And in life we need to know things, don't we? We need to know why. So this is all really important. And it's an important part, I believe, of leadership, because I realised through some of the struggles and issues that I was facing, I was projecting that to my team. Because I wasn't being the best version of myself that I could possibly be. So I'm going to cover this today from the perspective that how do you, as leaders, this is a room full of leaders, how do you protect yourself? Are you being your most authentic self? And how are you allowing that to affect the way that it affects the culture in your workplace? I finally realised that being a leader, it was my job to break that, not my team's job. It's not my team's responsibility to get to know me. How's the person at the bottom of the hierarchical structure in business? How are they able to walk into the CEO's office and ask what they had for dinner last night? It's easier to do it the other way around, though, isn't it? And these are the ways in which we can build culture and develop leadership. Is management different? Is leadership and management different? Well, it is. Fundamentally, I've spent lots and lots of time writing lots of essays in the military, trained as an officer at the Royal Military Academy, Sandhurst. People from all around the world go to train there. I think I've got 2,000-3,000 words essays on it, and I've got it down to this. You can manage by process, but you lead by example. That's it. That's my solution. That's the difference. Anyone can manage by process. Anyone can lead if it's within them. Just because you're a great manager doesn't make you a great leader. Just because you're a great leader doesn't make you a great manager. Are you being your authentic self? I looked at, and I would offer that people should look at the greatest influences in their life. Now, I've taken some of my greatest life lessons from the leaders and the managers that I've respected the least. Because things have happened to me and I've said to myself, wow, I'll never let that happen to anybody else. I know how that feels. I'll never do it to someone else. So, when you're looking at leaders and when you're looking at people, did you take the good and disregard the bad? That's what the TTG and the DTB is there. Ben goes on at me all the time for using these acronyms, don't you? I talk in TLAs sometimes. TLA? 3-letter abbreviations. It's meant to be funny, but it's not funny. You've got to look at communication. So when I was experiencing my struggles, I looked at my own communication and I thought, how well am I doing this? And I realised, and it worked out, I'm not a good listener. Do you know that we speak at between 1 to 300 words a minute, but we think at between 2,000 to 3,000 words a minute? And I found myself consistently jumping in on people all the time. If you find yourself doing that, don't beat yourself up. It's normal. It's scientific. James will agree. Is that right, James? That's a bit right, isn't it? So when it comes to communication, what's the difference between these two statements? How is it you've been late every day this week? Or why have you been late every day this week? Anybody who's read me Simon Sinek books, he talks about the book Start With Why. Has anybody read that in the audience? Yeah? Really useful book. So from that, I've developed my own 5 why strategy. I teach this on courses. I've given it to hundreds and probably thousands of people who've worked with both in the military and outside since I left. And it's about using the word why. When you're speaking to someone, if you get to the 5th why, or before you get to the 5th why, you'll get the root cause analysis, you'll get the problem. What do I mean by that? Well, let's use an example. Let's imagine, if we will, that Alex is no longer my boss. Alex is now the worker, okay? James is Alex's line manager, and I, James, is line manager. Alex has been late for work 3 times this week. James has come to me and gone, Tony, just to let you know, I've disciplined Alex. Okay, why? Because he was late. Yeah, but why? He was late 3 times this week. No, you've missed the point, James. Why was he late? Did you not ask the question? As a leader, it's your responsibility to look after the welfare of your workers. You are responsible for garnering that culture. You lead by example. If you're not taking an interest in the welfare of your employees, what's that going to do to your bottom line? As Karl Marx said, you've got the bourgeoisie and the proletariat, and without both, neither can exist. The haves and the have-nots. The haves need the have-nots, but you've got to take care of them. And a leader that thinks they don't have a welfare responsibility for the people who work under them is not a leader. So in that instance, James goes back to Alex and I go find out. And he comes back and he says, right, Alex, why were you late for work? Oh, I missed the bus. First, why? Why did you miss the bus? Oh, because I slept in this morning. Why did you sleep in? Because the wife stopped well at the moment and I had to get the baby ready for school. Why did that happen? Because she was diagnosed with cancer last week. The difference with that and the approach of, yeah, I've disciplined him because he was late, just things that you can think about. Are you really resonating a leadership focus on the team that you manage and the people that look to you for inspiration and advice? When it comes to looking at yourself and developing yourself and developing anything in a business setting or in a training capacity, has anybody seen the systems approach to training before, which you can see on the screens here? You've seen this. And it's about a really simple process. And you can look at training need analysis. So for instance, it's how to fix things. So if it's a member of staff, you look at a failing member of staff and you'll think to yourself, I'm doing the analysis. Why is that person failing? I'll go to them. I'll see what they've been asked to do. And if need be, I'll develop some training. I'll train that person as a leader to be a better version of themselves. And then from there, once that training's done, I'll then look at the needs. Is what that person was required to do now being done better as a result of my training? If the answer is no, I'll go back to the analysis and I'll think, what can I do differently? This can be applied to anything in the workplace, not just a person. Anything that's failing, if you use what's referred to as the SAT loop. the systems approach to trading, it can help us. But surely as leaders in a modern world, we can apply this to people as well. From my perspective, the two greatest resources in any organisation, and what do we do with resources? Anybody? Manage them? You manage resources? Two greatest resources, people and time. People are your most precious. Time is your most important. As a leader, you must start to look at managing these things and these processes. I too have a couple of books to share before I dip off and finish on my next slide. I want to talk about The Second Mountain by David Brooks. I've already mentioned Start With Why by Simon Sinek. If you haven't read it, if you get a chance, really good read. It'll change the way that you fundamentally think about things, or it did with me anyway. You may read it and think that was rubbish. Second Mountain, anybody read that one? Okay, so The Second Mountain, in a nutshell, a synopsis of it would be, it talks about how when we first go into business, or when I first joined the army, I had an idea of what I wanted to do, what I wanted to achieve, to get to the top of that first mountain, and how unrewarding it can be at times. And actually real help, real joy, real pleasure is often in the second mountain, when you get where you thought you wanted to be. And for me, that came with helping people. Doing the sort of things that I do to hundreds and thousands of people a year, is to talk to them, try and help them, try and coach them. Just to finish, my question to you is, are you being your authentic self? If you're not able to be your authentic self in the workplace, something's going wrong. You might be in the wrong workplace. You might be in the wrong field. You need to be self-fulfilled. Life is too short to be too unhappy for too long. I found that in my own struggles. I got a little bit, tried to educate myself as I got older. Left school with no qualifications. I've got a couple now. And I started reading philosophy. Has anybody heard of Charles Cooley, the American philosopher? And he says, he spoke a really, really interesting line, which, if you think about it, says this: I am not what I think I am. I'm not what you think I am. I am what I think you think I am. And if you break that down, what it fundamentally says that in life, we're all playing a part. Why not just try and be your authentic self? Because again, going back to Henry Ford and his quote, the arm folding exercise that I got you to do at the beginning, if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. But sometimes, with just a little change that can be uncomfortable at first, you can make big changes and big differences, not only to yourself, but to other people as well. We're going to leave that QR code up there now. I'm just about finished now, just a canter through. Please feel free to hit the QR code now or a bit later. I'm going to have a seat.
I'm going to ask you to stay standing. Okay, so this is not planned. So basically, Tony's just spoke.
I was going to sit down then.
Tony's just spoke that, and it's like, I always off the cuff. So I'm thinking about my own journey and the authentic self. I didn't know myself. When I look back, I didn't know myself. I always wanted to be what other people expected. Wanted to be a great dad. Wanted to be a great leader. I didn't know what I actually liked. And I was always searching for inner peace. From a young age, I was uncomfortable in my own skin. And it's weird how I had to become an alcoholic to actually figure that out and to be able to go back and do so much work on myself. And Claritee was formed in the hope of trying to help other people. That's as simple as it is. That was where it came from. You know, we brought together a bunch of people, you know, that want and have got the same vision. And I'm going to put Tony on the spot a little bit because Tony's just spoken magnificent. And given us all some advice, but I would actually like Tony to share a little bit about his own struggles. Not for long, just maybe a couple of minutes, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, sure.
I know I'm putting you on the spot, so
I know it's not particularly interesting, but I'm happy to. If I'd known this, we wouldn't have had the conversation that we had before. I've sort of given the game
I
away.
thought you were giving me some free gifts, extra value.
Yeah, so what about me? So, born and bred in Kirby, in Liverpool. Anyone know Liverpool? Well, you know Kirby, you know it's rough. And in the 70s and 80s, Kirby was pretty rough. You fought your way to the top. So by 14, 15 years of age, I was driving cars, mostly other people's and without their permission as well. I got into the really early stages of selling drugs. I've never mugged old grannies or burgled houses, but I say to people I've done stuff that I'm not proud of, but very little that I'm ashamed of, because the journey that I've taken to this point has made me the person I am today, be that good, bad or indifferent. So at 18 years of age, I remember the time vividly. I was with a mate of mine. It was about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. We were drunk in Liverpool city centre, and I thought I've got to do something to change my life. So I went to the Army Careers Office in Derby Square in Liverpool, where it used to be, and I signed up. I thought I'm going to join the army. And the recruiting sergeant was immediately, go away, son, come back when you're sober, which I did. I joined the army. I didn't even have a wife now, who was my girlfriend then. We've been together since we were 16. Quite how she's had the patience to put up with me if beyond me. She is an absolute saint. But I didn't even tell her because, a bit like Alex was saying, I couldn't be taken from this path. I knew that if I carried on down the path I was going, that I was going to end up in jail. I knew that I had more about me. I got no qualifications in school because I chose, I'm not unbright, which probably proves that I am. That's an oxymoron, because that's not even a word. But I'm not unintelligent. I was always quite bright. Not me mucking words in a full line. And I just decided that I had to do something to change. So I walked in. My mouth worked in Topshop in Liverpool at the time when I walked in. I said, I'm joining the army actually. She's like, no, you're not. And the following week I rang her from Chichester, said, I'm in the army. Anyway, I served for 28 years. Regular service, been to war a couple of times, been to some other operational theatres, was integrally involved in Liverpool in the COVID crisis, took the Team 45 during working cheek to jowl with people during the midst of the COVID crisis and all that stuff. All great, I enjoyed it all. And still serving now, just forgot to get out. In 2013, and I think this is the point that Alex is talking about, I was diagnosed with PTSD. I still have PTSD to this day. Wow, okay, that's what you get for putting me on the spot. I realised at that time, and it's easy to join the dots and say that the bloke who'd been to war a couple of times was probably suffering from PTSD because of that, but it wasn't. It went back to my childhood, the root cause analysis. You've done this for me. Someone laughed. This is getting quite heavy. So yeah, my mother had very serious mental health issues, and I saw it in and out of hospital all my life. And my father was an abusive alcoholic. That was my lot. It was my life from 6 years of age. I was my mother's sole carer. I was my brother's protector from 6 years of age, and that was normal to me. And it was normal until 2013 when I sat in front of a really wiry lady who called herself a consultant psychotherapy nurse. And I'm thinking, how hard can this be? And I'm sat there 2013, and she said to me, Tony, I'm going to make you a lot worse before I make you any better. And I didn't realise until that point in my life two things. One, that my childhood wasn't normal, because I'd never spoken about it before. And two, that for the previous 12 to 15 years, I've been using alcohol as a coping mechanism to get through the issues that I had. I'm proud to say that for the 18 months that I was in therapy, I never once missed a day from work, and I was never medicated. Why am I saying that? I don't use it as a stick to beat other people with who do go that way. I was really fortunate, like Alex was fortunate, that he had access to the therapy that he had. I was really fortunate to be based in Germany and home at the time, to get access to the community, Department of Community Mental Health, who were just unbelievable. So, yeah, thanks, Alex, that's me.
Well, I put him on the spot then because I believe that by us being vulnerable, by us being willing to actually share and actually say, yeah, I've beat you through a lot. It's okay. It's okay. And to give examples of that you can come through the other side. And I know it was emotional. I know I touched on it, and I'm sorry, definitely.
No, it's good. Yeah. That's the first time I've ever shared that story in public, ever.
So yeah, well done. Honestly, I feel good too. It was very powerful. So we're going to, after us leading by example, I'm now going to ask James to do something because these two gentlemen have got a little plan for you guys. So,
It's more fun, I promise you. Jeez. You all want to walk away there.
And so there is a little bit of a theme, and it's been displayed as well, about being authentic. And it can be one of the hardest things. I work with people day in, day out, week in, week out, who come to the point where they've got to admit or confront the struggles. We don't want this to be something that breaks the room into pieces. This is not some kind of group therapy session.
Yeah, don't turn into Tony.
But we are asking you to be able to be genuine just in your own self today. And we're talking about adversity and coming through adversity, trying to transform that into opportunity. We spoke about some of the things that might help us navigate and do that. And you've heard examples of people facing things, working through, and just how much being able to voice it was a powerful thing. So a little bit of tapping into that we're looking to do today. But keep yourself safe, something that you're not going to feel too triggered by, I would encourage. But we want to be genuine. So I want to think of a time that was adversity for you. It may still be current, it may be from the past. But a time where there was adversity and you had to face that. You had to work with that. And then we're going to look to see if we can share. So,
If I may, before we go on, and this wasn't rehearsed, I've just thought of this because I put you on the spot. If I think back to 2013, I couldn't get out of bed one day, and that's how I knew there was something wrong. I always knew there was something wrong. But the one regret I have from that time is that I was a leader, I was a captain in the British Army. I had 120 soldiers that I was responsible for who looked to me for guidance, leadership, management, everything. And I remember not being strong enough to have the therapy that I needed in the Department for Community Mental Health in my own barracks. I chose to go 14 miles away so no one could see me. I wish now I'd have done it in my own barracks so that they could have seen the strength that it took to be able to come through. And I'm mostly okay now. Most of the time. So the talking part, and I hadn't rehearsed this because I didn't know I was going to have to do that. But thinking about it, that's the one regret I've probably got. Not allow my soldiers to see me, not be okay.
and I'd say that the intention of the exercise is not to get us all to break out our inner demons, really. That's not it. But we do want to say the encouragement that if there's something we need to get authentic about, we feel brave enough to do it. And if there's something you might just think about in this room today, and then you actually want to go and talk to a friend, family member, or anyone else in the business context beyond today, cool. But we just want to do things in a preemptive way before it gets complicated. As early as possible, we can just be straightforward, be honest, be our authentic self. It helps us to navigate that track a lot more smoothly instead of it being done with a dragging it out, and a bit of a dip, potentially a crash. Does that make sense? And we also want to celebrate the ability to navigate adversity, because there'll be some wonderful stories in the room. There'll be some brilliant, brilliant stuff. So if you happen to stand up for me, that'll be wonderful. Is there a time? You're not going to have to share it. You're not going to have to put this out in front of everyone. But there's a time when it was a bit
You haven't got to
challenging.
do a Tony, don't worry.
There was a time when it was a bit challenging. Everybody seems to have gone, well, that's cool. Now the thing, please find someone you don't know. So you may have come in with someone you're familiar with already. We're pairing. Find a partner. Somebody you don't know. Thank you for getting talking. You did a good job on that part. That's wonderful. It's really wonderful to hear people having that expression, having that interchange. Thank you very much. So to ask, are you all okay? Thank you. That's honesty.
Did any of you share something that maybe you haven't or wouldn't ordinarily share with people? Anybody? I'm not going to ask what it was. Did you find it maybe quite empowering to speak about it? Did you find that the person you were telling it to didn't go, "You're a bit weird," and walk away? That's what I thought was going to happen. If I spoke about my issues, I thought I was going to be immediately stripped of my rank and kicked out of the army. Sometimes, particularly when you go into maybe interviews or job interviews and stuff, I now make a point of any of the teams that I work with of letting my bosses know. I just shared with Terry when we were talking. You may have picked up on it already. The one telltale sign for me, I have an involuntary twitch. But sometimes it manifests in my eyes, sometimes in my mouth. I tell the people who I'm working with who need to know about that, because then they know when I'm getting overly stressed. My wife does it all the time. I've just said to Terry, she quite often says, "Tony, go to the gym or go for a run. You're getting stressed." Do you know what I mean? So it's just that. And today's exercise, and James and I spoke about it before, and we thought it would be really useful. You've shared it once. I said to Terry, I wouldn't have walked into this room and gone, "Hey everyone, my name's Tony and I've got PTSD." because you'd have just walked out and you've been right to do so. It's about knowing when to share. When's it appropriate to share? When's it appropriate to be that human and be that leader with your people? Because as Alex said, and as we say, it's okay not to be okay. Sorry, James, back to you.
No, spot on. And exactly that. The point of in sharing is can be stepping into a bit of a different space. But I'm glad that you did. And exactly that question. And did the person want to get away from that immediately, or were they there and with you? Or when someone else shared with you, did you balk at that? Or were you just like, yeah, I'm here for you. I listen to that. There's space for this. This is possible. This is okay. That's the very thing that we want to foster as much as possible from Claritee and from the work that we do of encouraging positive well-being and mental health, certainly as leaders and for people in your organizations, but for you guys as well. We want to make sure that everybody is okay to be okay. And if it's not okay, they can find the space of stepping into what they need to do to bring their own. Now, the last question I'm going to ask you, but we'll not go too far into it because we might lose time. But I just want to ask, are you aware of something that was very particular for you within that adversity? And just think for your own self, we don't have to be sharing it out. If there was something that you recognize within yourself that allowed you to get through that, what was it? What was it, something either you learned or you came across? If there was any level of catalyst, might have been a person, might have been a book, might have been some kind of inspirational moment where it all just made sense in a different way. But if there was something that transformed that for you, because there's strengths that come from facing those challenges, there's strengths that come through going through those kinds of scenarios. And what we would have done, if we had a little bit more time, would be to have you share those strengths and those powerful pieces as well. Tell people what your catalysts were. The example that you can lead by and the example we can share with others from our own story is perhaps one of the most powerful things that you've got in your executive tool or your director's tool, your management or leadership tool. Post-traumatic growth is a term that I absolutely love. So yeah, we understand post-traumatic stress. We understand symptoms of stress and anxiety. To give some celebration to post-traumatic growth as well. It's a wonderful thing. And when other people are struggling, or if some people hear this now and in 5 years' time they hit their own struggle, they remember that. It's the inspiring stories, the true reality representing of what's possible. They're the things that stick with them. If you engage other people in these ways and share your wonderful stuff, the second most beautiful thing is what gets shared back with you. But the power to inspire others and be inspired ourselves is a very positive thing. So hopefully, between us, we might have brought a little bit of that to you. Thank you very much.
If you'll take a seat again, please, guys, if you would. And we have something of a walk on by culture in society now, don't we? In life, it happens at times. And what am I saying? Let's just maybe the takeaway from this in the workplace is this: the standard that you walk past is the standard you accept. I find that really powerful in a leadership capacity. The standard that you walk past is the standard you accept. And one final thing that I learned, something that I learned that helped me to cope through my PTSD, helps me. I've got PTSD to this day. It manifests itself in anger management issues, but you're fine. I'm not going to go like a Tasmanian devil today, I promise you I'm okay. Is the rule of 5. And James said he might have touched on it. I shared something with James that I developed. The rule of 5, and it goes like this. This thing that's just happened to me that makes my head want to explode. How's it going to make me feel in 5 seconds? 5 minutes? 5 hours? 5 days? 5 months? If you got past 5 minutes and you think nothing, let it go. Do a Frozen. Let it go. The rule of 5. I think what the three of us will do now is offer up to any questions that you may have. Nothing's off limits. Ask any questions you like, as long as it's relating to the topic from today. But it can be outside of that if you want. I do this a lot with school children. I work in a lot of secondary schools. And before I open the floor, they always say to me, children always say, have you ever killed anyone? And how much money do you get paid? In Liverpool, obviously. So I always say, thank you for picking up on that. And whether I've taken lives or not in my life, I always believe that my actions have always saved more lives than they've ever taken. And I get paid more than a policeman, but less than a doctor. And then they all go, anyone got any questions in the other one? Any questions for any of us?
Just before we go on to 5 minutes of Q&A. So we've talked to you a lot today, the three of us. You know, we've shared our own stories. We, you know, tried to give you some insight into things. And I've learned over the last so many years that whatever you go through, you've got to try and take, you know, the bits that can help you and the bits that, you know, make a difference. And what we've just done now in asking you to stand up and share with a stranger, they do it in AA. You know, they do it in Alcoholics Anonymous. People come in and stand up. And I was like that. Yeah, that's really powerful. Listening to somebody else that has struggled, that has been through a lot, and that has come out the other side. And it was like, okay, but why can't we apply it to any mental health? You know, if you've lost a partner, you could do with like somebody else who's been through the same thing to be able to speak to be able to connect with. It's all about community. It's all about making changes. You know, some of the stuff we can't see it sometimes, and I think that's really important. I was really, really impressed with how much everyone engaged with that, and absolutely credit to you guys for being open and being honest enough to stand up and share stuff, because it's not easy. It's not easy. You know, Tony, you know, put him on the spot and they brought tears to his eyes. It's hard. It's hard, but the more the people are willing to do it, the easier it begets, and the less of a stigma that stands around it. And that is all we're trying to do. We're trying to make a difference, and we're trying to make a difference in a positive way. And I'll be honest, I do this for fun now, because I actually enjoy it. All I want to do is help people. That's all I want to do. That's my mission. You know, and we've put together a team that have got the same mission, the same values. And if it can make a difference to a few people, then I'm more than happy. So I'll hand over. We'll do 5 minutes of any questions, and then we'll obviously wrap it up. So, but thank you all very much.